moment to breathe, grab a beverage or two. We got professional guests with lots of stories for you. So take a seat right here and join us on Careers Over Beers.
You want me to showcase this?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Show that shirt off.
Yeah.
And I actually wore a shirt today, too. This is the closest thing I had to butterflies, but I also know that you do stuff with flowers because I was looking through your Instagram,
Save it.
snooping on you.
Save it. Okay.
It Hey, we're recording right now. This is in the podcast. We're recording right now, yeah. So you're already listening. Welcome to Careers Over Beers podcast. Thank you for listening so much. I really appreciate it. I'm having a good time with this because I get to interview people like him. Go ahead and tell me who you are.
I'm Ryan Malone, and I am the owner of the Hatchery Butterfly Farm.
The Hatchery Butterfly Farm.
Yep.
That's crazy. I mean, that's not a normal gig.
Not at all. No.
But that's what makes it awesome, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that.
Yep.
We're drinking some Bacardis, and you told me before the show you've never even had these. That's a first for me. That's a first for one of my guests, just be like, yeah, I've never tried this. We're just going to wing it.
I couldn't decide, and all I could think about were mojitos, but I was just like, I'm not going to make him make a whole drink. Let's find one in a can.
Dude, you can make me do that. I promise every guest that comes on, like, I'll do whatever you want. I'll make some weird shit. I'll buy some nice shit.
Let's find the actual mojito.
Yeah, find which one you want to get.
Where is that? Right there.
I'm gonna do the same. Hopefully there's two of those.
Yeah, there should be.
Yep. So you're a mojito guy, and this is the only canned mojito you can really find. So you're like, yeah, let's try that.
I'm lazy, so I don't want to muddle the mint or anything. So let's see if this is good.
Let's give it a shot, man.
Yeah.
You want to turn my mic up a tad, Smarsh? Just a tad. He's a good talker, I can tell. Loud voice.
Thanks.
Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Oh,
That's pretty damn good. Wow.
that's a bit sweeter than I expected, but it's like,
That's surprisingly refreshing. You can really taste the mint in it and everything.
wow.
I'm kind of impressed with that. I wonder if there's rum in this. It's got to be, right?
It's a rum cocktail, so
Yep.
please.
Real rum cocktail. Shout out to Bacardi. Thanks for the delicious mojito. It's actually pretty refreshing. I'm sure it's sugary, though.
I'm going to be buying more of these.
Yeah. All right. Well, right on. We'll try it. We'll see what the next one tastes like if we get into it. If we get that far. I don't know how many you want to slam down, but we also have a sunset punch and a rum punch. So, all right, Ryan.
Okay.
So you own the Hatchery Butterfly Farm, and that's a farm for butterflies.
Yeah, basically. Right? So, I guess the best way I can describe what I do is that I am somewhat of a small-scale farmer that has butterflies for livestock. So I grow all these plants and I feed the plants to the butterflies, the caterpillars, essentially. And it is surprisingly a lot of work.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So you're growing all of the food for the butterflies, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of food do they eat?
So different butterfly species eat different plants. So I raise a lot of monarch butterflies.
Yeah.
And the only plant that the caterpillars will eat or the adult butterfly will lay eggs on is milkweed. And Kansas has like 12 or 13 different species of milkweed, but monarch butterflies only really like to lay eggs on a handful of different ones, mainly because the leaves are more tender at different types of the year. And then black swallowtails, they love to eat like parsley, fennel, dill.
They like
rue.
the good stuff.
Yeah.
The spices or the herbs.
The stuff that people plant in their yard, and all of a sudden,
For their garden.
Like, what is all eating
And it all disappears.
Yeah.
Like dill and dill's good stuff. I love dill.
Yeah, it is good stuff. I grow it to make pickles because I'm a big pickle fan.
So you have a whole farm then really going for yourself and for your butterflies.
Yeah, well, when you say it's funny because people say like, "Oh, can we come visit the farm?" And I'm like, "It's kind of like my backyard in like downtown Wichita."
Well, they're small livestock. They require a small space.
Yeah.
They don't need a pasture like a cow, right?
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
So I have a little butterfly hoop breeding house, and then I have a small hoop house for raising plants for conservation stuff. And then there's a room attached to my garage that is my caterpillar rearing lab.
What is that?
So what that basically means is I raise all the caterpillars in there away from the outdoors. And that's because there's a lot of like parasitic wasps and things like that lay eggs in caterpillars and eat them from the inside out.
Those are crazy.
You don't really want that. It's funny because a lot of the beneficial insects that we see as great because they get rid of plant pests are actually the ones that are laying eggs in butterfly caterpillars, because butterflies technically are classified as plant pests by the USDA.
Are they really?
Yeah.
But they're not.
Oh, well.
Like according to you?
They can't. Well, according to me, I don't think they're pests, but they can be pests. So like on soybean crops or alfalfa and all that stuff, there's a certain yellow butterfly that lays eggs all over those. So I don't know if you've driven out into those fields in Kansas.
Yeah, they're all over.
Late summer, fall. There's just, it's funny because you're driving on the dirt road and there's just dead yellow butterflies on the ground from how many butterflies there are just everywhere. It's ridiculous.
So you don't like the yellow ones?
Oh, I like the yellow ones. I like them all. It just depends on your point of view. You know, like if your main source of income are these crops and the butterflies are
damaging
loving your crop a little bit too much, you might view them as you might hate them. Yeah.
It's all perspective,
Yeah.
man. It's like the dark side versus the Jedi in Star Wars. You know, it's all based on your perspective. Who's really bad here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know butterflies even ate stuff. Really, I thought that they were just pollinators, kind of like bees. But I guess.
So butterflies. I call butterflies a butterfly at the caterpillar stage, in the chrysalis stage, which is their pupal stage, and the adult butterfly stage. So when I say the butterflies eat it, I mean the caterpillars are eating it.
I got you.
So the butterflies obviously emerge from their chrysalis after the caterpillars are done eating, and then those butterflies will then breed and keep laying eggs.
And then they become caterpillars.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And the caterpillars are munching away at plants and leaves and stuff, but the butterflies don't actually eat, do they?
So butterflies, they nectar from flowers, so they are pollinators from that aspect. So they have this rolled up little tongue called a proboscis that unrolls. And so they feed from a whole bunch of different flowers, mainly like pink flowers, yellow flowers, purple flowers. So,
but they're not munching down stuff like caterpillars.
No.
I mean, you give a caterpillar a leaf and it'll sit there and just munch.
Yeah, if it is the plant that it can eat. Where moths are a different story. So
moths?
Moths are so moths and butterflies are all in the same family. Mm-hmm. It's called Lepidoptera. But the butterflies are the more colorful ones, so people tend to love on those a lot more.
Nobody likes a moth.
Yeah.
They're a nuisance.
And moths are normally generalists, meaning that the caterpillars can eat a huge range of different plants. So they're not plant specific like most butterflies are. And so that's when moths can really become a pest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they eat clothes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't really think about that though. I guess they are caterpillars at some point then, aren't they? Mm-hmm. What do those look like so I know? Oh gosh, are they gray and nasty?
Caterpillars can look like anything. So they're really cool moth caterpillars. They could be brown, green. Some have you seen those moth caterpillars that kind of have spikes on them before, maybe?
I've never really thought of a caterpillar as a moth. I've usually just thought of them as butterflies, I guess. But
yeah. Well,
they're probably prettier as a caterpillar than they are a moth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a Cecropia moth though, which is one of our giant silk moths. They get yay big.
Yeah, like a bird almost.
Yeah, and those caterpillars are wild.
Really?
Yeah, they're this kind of light green, and once they get bigger, they have these little purpley nubs all over them, and these orange color. They're huge, so fatter than my thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's like those big grubs on Lion King they were sucking out of logs, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, they look that fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're obviously passionate about this. How did you get involved in butterflies and this whole world that you're in?
So a lot of people were like, oh, I bet you were passionate about butterflies from a young age. And that's not really.
No.
I was in high school And we had this land and nature kind of habitat that had poison ivy all through it. And my school had an elementary, middle, and high school. And so we all used to, in elementary and middle school, go into this land area and have like kind of like a field day, science days, things like that. But we couldn't go in there anymore because it was a liability with all the poison ivy and such. And there was poison hemlock, kind of another invasive species, kind of all grown in there because there's a creek. And my friend and I wanted to restore it, bring everyone back in there, but we got a grant from Monsanto for $20,000, and a huge part of that was restoring native butterfly habitat. And so that was kind of my job, and I got sucked into that a bit. It became a major hobby of mine, and I did not go to college for this at all.
No, that was a question that I had for you. Actually, was did you have any formal training or education in this? What do you consider somebody? Is there a name for a person that works with butterflies?
So if someone's studying butterflies, they're a lepidopterist.
Lepidopterist.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess I'm not studying them technically. So the term for me would be a butterfly farmer. I originally went to school pursuing biochem on the pre-med track.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was in the honors program.
Be a doctor.
Yeah, I was in the honors program at Creighton University in Nebraska, in Omaha. And I just realized, everyone in this honors program that is in pre-med track is working way harder at this than I am. And I'm going to get weeded out. So I'm just going to weed myself out early and switch to graphic design. I did a lot of that in high school too. And I also did a lot of theater in high school. And then
you just did a bunch of things.
Get ready for a crazy ride. I auditioned for an opera program.
Really?
Study abroad opera program that was a graduate level program when I was 19, and I got on it. So then I studied abroad.
So you sang opera?
Yeah, and then I.
You want to give me an example right now?
Nope.
Okay.
So then I was like, maybe I should pursue performance. And then I got some vocal issues a few years later. And I had transferred back to WSU at this point, into Wichita. And I started up raising caterpillars again because, in a different state, you can't really have caterpillars and things like that in a dorm room.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I started
That's kind of a weird thing to get busted for.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ryan, I know you got caterpillars in there. I'm going to catch you one day.
Just releasing the butterflies out the dorm room window.
So it kind of started as one of these things where you're like, my friend and I are going to save this, and you learned how to do it.
Yep.
Did you have any experience doing it before that?
Not really. And it just kind of turned into this hyperfixation. I was just online Googling plants that I needed to plant to restore the native habitat. And then I started learning about all this weird stuff about different butterfly species. And I just started reading all that instead of doing homework. So,
well, it was your passion.
Yeah.
You cared about it. You obsessed over it. You're not going to do good in school if you're not really interested in what they're teaching. That was my biggest problem through school. Is like, I don't care what this is about. I don't want to do anything with this. I don't need this. I'd rather drink with people. So that's why I'm doing a podcast.
Well, here you are. Yeah.
But yeah, I love people that are passionate about things. It's fun to talk to those kind of people,
Yeah, definitely.
Did you ever think in your mind, like, there's no way you can make a job out of this?
Oh, I did not think I would personally be able to make a job out of this at all.
Yeah.
Like I had a short internship at a butterfly farm in Florida, and that was mainly kind of an educational internship rather than a working long-term internship. And then I worked at a flower farm for a year. One of my friends got into a nursing program last minute, and she didn't think she was going to get into it, and all of a sudden had no one to work her flower farm. So I did that, and then I worked at Botanica as a gardener, and I was running in part their butterfly house as well.
Yeah, that place is awesome.
Everything kind of just snowballed onto each other because I was raising butterflies while I was working there, and then the head gardener there, Pat, was like, "Hey, if you want to raise some butterflies for us, go for it." And so then I started selling some of my butterflies to them when I was working there.
And that was kind of your first transaction. You're like, wow, people are buying my stuff.
Yeah, that's when it really started going, and I was thinking I could maybe do this. I had developed chrysalis boxes like a few years before, where I had just started experimenting with breeding butterflies, and I did not realize how many eggs a butterfly could lay in such a short period of time.
How many can it?
Oh, excuse me. So butterflies, over their short lifespan as adults, can lay up to 300 eggs. That's normally over like a 2-week period.
Really?
But if your butterfly, if you hadn't given it a milkweed plant or whatever to lay eggs on for a week, and you put it in there, they'll egg bomb it. So I put in a plant for 30 minutes, and I think, oh, it'll take a while for them to lay a lot. And I pull it back out, and there's like 200 eggs on it.
And you can see them individually and count them and everything?
Yeah.
What do you mean they'll egg bomb it? They'll just egg bomb the cage?
So what that means is, if they haven't had a chance to lay eggs on plants and they think this is the only plant nearby, they'll just lay egg. They'll
just blast it out?
Yeah.
Like a day after eating Taco Bell?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So with that, I was going to go to Michigan to visit some of my extended family. And I was like, I have all these butterfly chrysalis, and I want to share these with people. So I put them in these little chrysalis boxes that I made, and I sold them at Treetop Nursery.
Yeah, Treetop Nursery.
And so that was just like a little small side gig thing. But it was really at Botanica when they started buying all my stuff that I realized, I have multiple places where I can
That's the
sell
perfect
things.
spot.
So,
I mean, anybody in Wichita that's been to Botanica knows you walk through that big round top, that butterfly garden, that place is badass.
Yeah. I just dropped off 100 pupae or chrysalis this morning.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. So what does it take to breed a butterfly? Like, what's going on there?
So first off, you would need to test your butterflies for different common butterfly diseases under a microscope to make sure that you're starting off with some healthy butterflies, and to create your breeding stock. And then once you've ascertained that they are healthy, I put them now in a hoop house, flight house sort of scenario, where it's planted with flowers and they can feed themselves off the nectar.
The natural way.
Yeah. And the males, in order to properly, I think they're called create spermophytes, they need to do something called puddling, where instead of nectaring from a plant, they put out their proboscis into the ground. And
What's a proboscis?
Their little straw.
Oh, okay. That curly straw?
Yeah, the curly straw.
Proboscis.
Put their curly straw into the ground, butterflies are kind of crazy, so there's some butterflies have evolved that really like dung, and they get minerals from that.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are some butterflies that will like sweat, and so they get minerals. Sometimes they land on you and they suck up the salts off your skin. And they do that so that they can properly develop sexually, and so that they can pair off with a female. And then essentially all you have to do after that is put a plant in there. Yeah.
So you're watching butterfly porn all day, basically.
So I gotta tell you something else.
I want to hear it.
So okay. So there's something called hand pairing that you can do with butterflies. So before I had this little flight house, I would be hand pairing butterflies. So and that's pretty labor intensive. So you have to hand feed butterflies. I do hand feed them Gatorade because it has all the sugars and electrolytes and stuff that they need to develop. And then after about 4 days, the males would normally be mature enough to pair. And so then essentially you hold the butterflies by their abdomens and you stick them up to butt and you wait for them to pair.
So you're forcing them.
I'm not forcing them. I'm guiding them.
It's not consensual. It's not consensual, right?
So butterflies, it's crazy. So when they actually copulate, it's normally the butterflies are just flying through the air. The female's just doing whatever. And then the male just launches out of nowhere and just tackles them.
You're mine.
And they fall to the ground. And so if you ever see just these butterflies just kind of in a tussle on the ground.
That's rape.
That
male is
mating.
raping her.
Nature Nature is a magical place.
Nature finds a way. So you don't feel too bad about forcing sex upon two butterflies because they're already raping in nature.
Yeah. I mean, to put it that way, technically, yeah. So
how long does it take it?
Oh, well, some species, they stay paired for like maybe 20 minutes and then they separate, but then some they stay paired. They tend to pair off at dusk, and they stay together until the next morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you've had a failed pairing or a successful one based on if they stayed together.
Most guys are thinking right now, man, I'm jealous of that.
Yeah.
It's only a minute for humans. That's crazy, man. I didn't know that was part of the job.
Yeah, well, that's what it was, and that was really labor intensive. And like handling butterflies with your hands, you have to do it a very specific way so you don't like rub off the scales on their wings or anything and damage them. And so when you're hand pairing, you have to be so delicate, and they're
trying to escape, and
this carbonated drink, man.
No, it's good.
Me. Yeah, you have to.
They're probably freaking out trying to escape.
Yeah, they're just moving around and wrestling around, and yeah, you don't want to damage the wings.
So it doesn't hurt them if you're holding the wings when they're closed.
Yeah, so you hold wings, use like the peace sign kind of thing, where you put your fingers around the wings and you close them. That way, you don't kind of rub your pointer or your thumb together like you went this way, because this way you'd probably rub the scales off their wings and damage them.
So that's actually something I wanted to talk about too. Is I read somewhere that all butterflies are actually transparent. Their wings are technically transparent, but they're just colored scales kind of in there.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. So underneath all those scales on the wing, it looks just like a fly's wing. It's just transparent.
It's just a transparent like film type thing. Mm-hmm. Really?
So the scales it's covered each wing with just thousands of scales. And those scales, the coloration of them, they either are pigmented or they're not. So, for example, there are iridescent butterflies, like those giant blue butterflies that you see. Mm-hmm. So that has some pigment on the scales, but the iridescence of it that makes it such a vivid blue is from how the scales are spaced apart. So it's like reflecting light to make it look more blue. So yeah, some butterflies.
So they're like little reflectors in there, kind of.
Yeah.
Can they shift them, or are they fixated?
They're more fixated on the wings. It's just kind of like how they're spaced out. It's kind of.
Can you see this under a microscope?
Yeah. You
really?
Can. I can use my phone and go super zoom in and take a picture, and you can see the scales.
I would like to see that. Yeah. I would like to see that. I'd like to come to your farm sometime and see what you got going on in there.
It's super cool.
I bet if somebody broke into your house and they walked in there, they'd be like, "Whoa,
oh,
what's going on here?"
You wouldn't believe. So sometimes butterflies, they don't pupate correctly. So that means when they shed their skin as a caterpillar, they might move like where their proboscis is or their antenna is as a pupa. And that means that the butterfly won't emerge properly. So maybe it won't be able to feed, or its wing might be deformed or something like that. It can't fly properly. Mm-hmm. So in those instances, you, as a ethical butterfly breeder, you aren't supposed to release them into the wild, because who knows, that could be a small genetic issue that's just starting to appear. Like, you really want to have as healthy of a butterfly stock as possible.
Right.
And
you don't want to pass those bad genes on out there in nature.
So with that, the way that you can quickly essentially put them down is you put them in an envelope in the freezer. And my friends, when they would come over for drinks, they used to be like, "What kind of psychopath lives here? There's dead bugs in the freezer." And it's just like, it's a weird concept to explain to people that really care about butterflies. They're like, you froze the butterfly? And it's like, well, to be a responsible breeder, you don't want to be putting that back into nature.
Well, what happens if you just let it live in like a cage or like one of those butterfly tents till it dies?
You can. However, that if it does have some sort of disease that isn't a genetic issue, that I can't test for at this point. So like, you need to test this fluid that comes out as the butterfly is emerging from the pupa. And if you don't test that fluid, and you use a certain dye to see what microsporidia, this kind of tiny spore. If you don't have any of that, or you didn't catch it at the right time, then you can't really test to see if that has a disease. And so at the butterfly farm, you don't want to hold on to diseased butterflies, because that could spread to your stock, and you really don't want that to happen. So with those, it is much safer, and actually better for all the butterflies overall to just not hold on to it.
Just throw them in the freezer and kill them.
Yeah, they lived as long of a life as they could under my care. So,
how long does one live? Speaking of that, how long?
A butterfly as an adult typically only lives 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but the entire life cycle, from the moment that the egg is laid to the end of an adult butterfly's life, is about a month and a half. So it's like 3 to 5 days as an egg, 2 weeks as a caterpillar, 2 weeks usually as the chrysalis, and then it emerges as a butterfly.
Yeah. So you're not taking too much off its life when you're freezing it and then right?
The majority of its life has already been lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to lose too much sleep over that.
Yeah.
Over a butterfly being frozen. Because I mean, in nature, think about that. They're dying horrifically, probably. They're getting eaten by something.
In nature, the reason why butterflies lay so many eggs, like 300, is because there's so many predators that are out there. And if they didn't have all these predators out there, then we would have nothing to eat, if that makes sense. Because butterflies, they eat a lot of our crops. So like those yellow butterflies.
So it would just be way oversaturated with butterflies if there weren't predators eating all those eggs up.
It'd get to the point where it's like those locust plagues in Africa. But
the biblical times
where caterpillars just everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that with any other thing. You look at, people are sad when a baby bunny dies or a squirrel cracks into a bird's egg and eats it, but in reality, that's sort of nature's way of controlling the population, because if every every rabbit lived back in they used to have a rabbit problem back in the day. My grandpa used to talk about in like the 1920s and 30s, they would round up jackrabbits into a cage and give kids clubs. And they'd say, all right, have fun. And they'd just go beat the shit out of them until they all died. Like hundreds of jackrabbits. Yeah. Jackrabbits were a huge nuisance in like the 1920s and 30s in Kansas.
No idea.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They would do that at school. They'd round them up into a big fence, and they'd give every kid a club and say, go kill as many as you want.
That's pretty brutal. So putting a butterfly in a freezer is
that's nothing compared to that.
Yeah.
No.
When a butterfly in a freezer, that's one of the quickest ways to kill it, other than squishing it, which I just really can't bring myself to do.
Yeah, that's a little dark.
That seems way worse. But yeah, I'm raising a whole bunch of plants as well on top of butterflies that I'm selling to people for conservation purposes. So like monarch butterflies, their population has kind of tanked since the 90s, and it's been going up and down a bit over the last decade, but the population's still really low. And there's two different populations of monarchs. There's one, a West Coast population, which overwinters in California, migrates up, and then back down in the fall. And then there's the Eastern population, which all overwinters in Mexico and migrates up all the way into Canada and all the way back down to Mexico.
So the Mexican ones are the ones we see in Kansas when they come around?
Yeah.
Those things are beautiful. I remember, now that you mentioned that, being a kid, there's actually videos we have on our of when I was a kid, probably 5 years old or so. This is like 2000 probably, and there's monarchs everywhere, all over our yard, and I'm running out there, running around trying to catch them and stuff.
If I recall, I think 1997 or 98 was the highest the monarch population had ever been on record, and then from there it just dropped off. And I mean, it's because of a lot of different factors. It's like climate change is happening. There was Monsanto, where we got the grant from in high school.
Yeah.
They're the creators of Roundup, and they realized, crap, we kind of did negatively affect the monarch population, and so they gave us a grant. And so pesticides are used on crops, and milkweed normally grows around the edges of farmland. And so all the if the butterfly laid eggs on there, the caterpillars would then die, which would keep the population low. Or maybe they used herbicides to get rid of the milkweeds in the fields, because milkweed it does spread rather aggressively underground and by seeds if you let it. And so it's understandable that a lot of farmers didn't want it.
Yeah.
But that's the unintended side effect of, making things a little bit easier.
Well, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of factors when it comes to this stuff that we're playing with, and we don't realize other effects it might have. I mean, you look at pesticides, look at what that's done for farming. It's increased our yields so much now, and we got to feed the world, but then at the same time, there's other little things that you're affecting you might not realize. And there's
like a lot of the bee population, they didn't realize, some of these systemic pesticides that we thought were safe we looked at the nectar and different things like that. We didn't look closely at the pollen granules. And so the honeybees are collecting these pollen granules, and in trace amounts, there's this pesticide in them, and they use that pollen to feed developing bee larvae. And so that was somewhat a part of the colony collapse disorder and things like that.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. I actually just got bees.
Want to know what's crazy is that my dad and I were keeping bees for the last 2 years, and we're like, we need to take a break from this because we kept messing up.
Did you?
And not really messing up. It's just bees have so many diseases nowadays because of varroa mites. And then that year that we were really successful, that winter had that crazy, that freeze that happened.
Oh, when it was like negative 10 or whatever.
We didn't have it properly insulated for that. So a lot of people that year lost hives. But what's crazy is this year we just left the hives out, and we're like, whatever. We'll just try it, not this year, but next year. And then a hive moved into one of our
Did it
hives.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's kind of what I wanted. I ended up just getting a queen in mind that I ordered through the mail because I wanted to see him fly. My dad had an extra hive he brought over to my house. And so we ended up getting a queen and everything, but I was like, I would love to see one just naturally come to this hive from nature,
So normally people put those traps out, like they call them traps, but they're just the hive boxes that they normally put them up in a tree or something. Ours was on the ground, and I thought bees were robbing it in the early spring when there's not a good nectar flow. So they're stealing all the remnant honey from the dead hive. And, I kept going over. It was at my parents' house, so I kept going over there, and every single time I was over there, I would see bees going in and out. I'm like, there's no way they're still robbing. There's no way.
That's awesome.
And I looked in there the other week, and we have
that's
strong
cool
hive.
as shit. Yeah, I hear about that happening, and that's awesome to see that happen. And I don't even know why I really wanted bees, but I do love the whole conservation aspect of it and just keeping our plants pollinated. I know bees are a huge deal from the little that I know about stuff, but they're fun. They're fun to watch.
Crazy. If you even want to get into that and get nerdy about it, there's did you know the honeybee actually isn't native to the United States? Yeah, it's a European bee. And so I didn't know this when I started beekeeping. But apparently, the Save the Bees, there's two kind of different campaigns that are saying save the bees, right? There's save the honeybees because there's all these diseases. We're so dependent on them for agricultural reasons. They're such a strong pollinator of our crops. And then there's the save the bees, which is the native bees. And I didn't know, but they're slightly conflicting with each other.
Really?
Yeah. So if honeybees, they are much better at collecting pollen, and they visit more flowers. And so a lot of times they might... how do I say this? They collect most of the nectar from a flower, and then a native bee doesn't have enough to feed from.
And collect its own pollen.
So I was like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that was a problem. So there's save the bees from many directions, but there can be conflicting things.
That's a new one for me for sure.
Yeah.
I guess I knew there was bumblebees. I know there's honeybees.
Yeah. You limit the resources of native bees when you but the thing is honeybees, they're naturalized here. There's wild populations here. So
you can find a hive out in a tree somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So, I guess it's kind of like, wheat isn't native to America either.
Yeah.
Or the wheat that we use anyways. and modern cattle that we have aren't native to them. So there's a lot of things that thrive, but
yeah, it becomes a moment of like, where do you want to pick your battles? Like, where do you stand on this? Because it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a value conflict. A lot of people.
I don't know. Yeah, I just think it's a cool hobby to have. Yeah. It's fun to watch them because they just come in and out like at the same exact pace. It's like planes landing at an airport.
Yes.
Just woo, like, and then 30 seconds later, woo.
And all their little dances and things.
Yeah, and the fact that they all have a different role. Like they're born and their only purpose is to like guard the queen, and then their only purpose is to build honeycomb, and then it's like slowly progressing. It's crazy how
these are savage. So do you know that that in the winter, so most of the bees are female, and they create male drones, right? You know this?
Yeah.
So in the winter, so that they can ensure that they survive, they push out all the drone bees, the male bees, and they don't let them come in to like eat the honey reserves.
They just
or anything.
let them die.
So they just they shove all the males out. Like, you're gonna die, because the males are actually created by unfertilized eggs. So when the female lays fertilized eggs, those become the worker bees.
Oh.
So like the queen could technically lay drones whenever, male. So in the winter, they're like, oh, we don't have enough honey to feed you guys. You're out.
You're going first.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Titanic going down. You know? Women and children, you men are screwed.
Yeah, they're cast out.
It's crazy. And it's crazy how smart they are and how they work as like one entity almost. Like they're all connected, and they have their one purpose, and they know exactly how to do it.
It's totally crazy.
It doesn't make any sense how an insect like that could be that smart and understand that. Have you seen anything like that with your butterflies and doing the stuff that you do? Like,
oh gosh,
do they ever blow you away, like their intelligence or things that they do that they just know?
It's really weird. So some butterflies migrate and some don't. But the migratory populations kind of blow my mind, especially monarchs, because they overwinter in the same places every winter in Mexico.
Yeah.
And they migrate, though, all the way up to Canada. And so the super generation at the end, sorry, I'm trying to find words to say it. So these butterflies have been laying eggs, and there's been 5 generations moving northward, right? And when the cooling temperatures start to happen, and then the sun, basically they studied it, the sun hits the ground at like a 57-degree angle at noon or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's around the time when these butterflies go through this hormone shift where they are bigger, they have bigger wings, they don't reproduce, and they just have this instinct to fly south. So these 5 generations of slowly creeping up, that took the entire year. And then all at once, well, not necessarily all at once, because, you know, the sun shift moves back down south over time. But they all at once basically migrate down to Mexico.
That doesn't make any sense.
Literally all of them.
How do they know how to do that?
I have no idea.
And how do they know where they're going?
I really don't know, because there are resident populations of monarchs that don't migrate. And they're genetically the same, and they tested them thinking like, okay, well, if we put this butterfly from this resident population, shipped it to Canada, or like as a caterpillar, and the caterpillar is exposed to the changing light temperatures and everything, would it migrate? And it does. In a
2-week lifespan, they can fly all the way to Mexico?
So, oh yes, that's the one fact I forgot to say. So when they go through that hormone shift, they don't reproduce, and then they can live for like 6 months. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. But a lot of them do fly down that distance in like a 2-week period, 3-week period, because they just fly on the thermals, like a mile or 2 miles up.
That's so insane to me.
And they just pop down.
Because it's not like a bird. A bird can actually gain speed and fly, you know. You're thinking of a butterfly, like.
Yeah, so butterflies, monarchs especially, they glide. So it's like a
so just carry the wind or whatever, kind of?
So they just fly where the wind is.
That stuff blows my mind.
That's why sometimes some areas, they don't have, like, oh, the monarchs didn't come through our area this year. It's just dependent on how the wind is moving, how the weather is going, because butterflies really just follow that air current.
Yeah. That stuff, it's just mind-boggling to me how nature and things in nature know how to do that stuff. I have a buddy, Derek Brenner, actually, the firefighter that was on here. He does pigeon races. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a real thing. It's a group of people that race pigeons, and how they do it is you raise your pigeons here, like he raises his here in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
At his home, right here in Colwich, outside of Wichita, and everybody will go down to Texas, and I don't know exactly where this is, so I could be getting some details wrong here, but they go down to like South Texas, let's say, San Antonio. Everybody's there with their pigeon, right? And this group is Wichita. So he's there with 20 other guys that raise these pigeons, and they're from Wichita.
Okay.
They release them, and you jump in your car and you drive back, and whoever's pigeon gets back here first is the winner, and they know exactly how to get home. They've never been out of their home before. They were raised right here in Wichita. You take them to San Antonio, and they fly home. And you can track them, like people put little smart bands on them and stuff.
Basically like the carrier pigeons.
It's kind of like Hogwarts, flying
the owls, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. And they know how to get home, and they track them, and they'll see who's in the lead and which pigeon's going where, and you just drive. And isn't that insane?
Crazy. Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. They track monarch butterflies, but not like that. So they just stick a little stick. They stick a sticker on the wings in the fall that has a special adhesive so it doesn't fall off. And they just have these people in the overwintering sites. If they see a tagged butterfly, they can, pick it up, write it down, what tag it was, and see where it came from. But it's not. You can't really go high tech with butterflies because they weigh them down.
Yeah.
So it's just like this really,
They're
really
very light creatures.
Yeah.
So you started a business out of this whole thing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It went from selling some butterflies here and there, and then people started buying them. At what point did it get like, wow, I'm making a legit business out of this? This is what I'm going to be doing.
So I decided after I was working at Botanica that I was going to pursue this. But at that point, I was a seasonal gardener at Botanica, so I needed to work somewhere in the fall, in the winter. So I worked somewhere, and I left that spring to go start the business because I'd worked kind of all winter setting myself up. And then the pandemic hit in March, right when I left. So I was in this really interesting position because I was new to be able to, weirdly enough, succeed, especially during a pandemic, because most butterfly farms, their main source of consistent income is supplying exhibits, right? And at that point, the only exhibit I could supply was Botanica, so it wasn't like a huge thing for me. And I was doing butterfly releases, and I hate to say this, but a lot of people in the pandemic were dying.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people wanted to release butterflies at funerals.
Oh, wow.
And so,
So there was a whole market there that opened up kind of for you.
Yeah,
during that
so
time.
a lot of that during the pandemic, I did butterfly releases, and then I did life cycle kits for kids and families at home. And those were two things that I hadn't really focused on before because, like I said, I had the chrysalis boxes and the exhibits, but I knew I could do that. And it was kind of at that point where I was like, I'm succeeding in a pandemic with butterflies and plants.
Mm-hmm.
Not having a storefront, just doing online sales. I can do this. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you realize then at that moment, like, this can be a real thing.
Yeah.
There's actually a market for it. People want this stuff. There's a demand.
Butterflies mean a lot to a lot of different people. So they symbolize a lot of different things. So like rebirth, kind of like renewal, transformation, growth.
Right.
So, for example, if someone just passed away, it's kind of like life after death.
Yeah.
Or to celebrate a moment of change. So, like maybe someone's getting married, they have like a big change that like these butterflies released represent transformation, or a lot of actually addiction programs also use butterflies as kind of a transformation sort of thing.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and so there are addiction programs that have used my butterflies. Hospice. I actually sold a butterfly release for a kindergarten graduation in Florida. So yeah.
That's getting a little outrageous, don't you
think? But they symbolize a lot of things to a lot of people. They're like ephemeral, beauty, fleeting. And what I really like about doing this is that it gets people looking at the small things. Because once you get into butterflies and you maybe planted a milkweed plant or parsley in your backyard, you're constantly looking for butterflies and to see if there's eggs on your plants, to see if you have caterpillars. And if you're looking on your plant and you don't see an egg, you might see something else. Be like, what is that? What are these little string things that are white? And then you learn, oh, they're green lacewing eggs.
Oh.
Well, what are those? And so you kind of become fascinated in this little microcosm.
Yeah.
And I think during the pandemic, I thought that was like a really cool thing because a lot of people were stuck at home and couldn't go see things. So you just got to look in your own backyard, and there's just like this whole crazy world.
It's cool. When you get down to that level, you know, you can find a whole new world there that you never knew existed. Just plants and stuff that you would play in or walk through before, and now you look at everything totally different.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very symbolic. I know exactly what you're talking about with the rebirth thing, you know. Butterflies are very symbolic. They even named the butterfly effect after butterflies, right?
Yeah, just a small little change.
A small little change can make the world of difference in the long run. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, now we're post-pandemic sort of, I guess, and
Yes.
how's the business doing?
Oh, it's good. I've now expanded into supplying exhibits. I supply Botanica now with 100 butterfly chrysalis a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then I joined the International Butterfly Breeders Association, and I'm learning a lot through that. I potentially will have butterflies upcoming in a docu-series.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really know any more about that because I have to sign an NDA.
Damn, dude.
But yeah, that's all I can say. It's kind of public knowledge. It's just a butterfly thing for a docuseries.
Do you ever look around and be like, man, this is working out? Like, I can't believe how this is working out for me.
Sometimes I wonder how the hell these people find me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that big of an internet presence per se until this year when I really started trying to go for the social media thing. And yeah, I have no idea where this production studio found me.
Yeah.
Or where some of these like people from in New York and Wisconsin and all these other places are just finding my website and buying my stuff.
That's amazing,
I
dude.
just, like, I have no idea how you found me, but cool. Let's
That's
chill.
awesome. Yeah. I guess the good thing too, like supplying exhibits and stuff like Botanica, is that their lifespan is so short, they need a constant supply, right?
Yep.
And they need a butterfly guy. Like,
So,
who's your butterfly guy?
Yeah,
There's
it's
not very
me.
many of those.
Yeah, so I was just at Botanica, like I said, this morning, and I was looking in their little chrysalis emergence station where the butterflies emerge, and I was like, oh, it's just me and one other person. Because when I worked there were about 4 or 5 people supplying.
Oh, really?
And once again, pandemic, a lot of the butterfly farms, they just decided to not keep going. A lot of them might have been like older retired couples that had been doing it for a while. And so now exhibits, they need suppliers. And so that's why I'm supplying 100 a week to
Is it
Botanica.
overwhelming doing that many?
Yeah, a little bit. Because it's not the raising the butterflies in a healthy way that's necessarily hard. It's growing all the plants or sourcing all the plants to feed them, because monarch butterflies especially, they are voracious. Once they're in their biggest size as a caterpillar, they can eat 1 leaf an hour.
Oh, wow.
And if you have hundreds of these caterpillars, you need a lot of plants. So
How many butterflies do you have?
right now?
Yeah.
So adult butterflies that are flying around in my hoop house, I have probably 50 there. I am in holding of another 50 or 60 in a wine cooler. Lower temperatures slow them down, their metabolism, so they don't want to fly around. So they kind of like roost. Like, at
Oh,
night.
these aren't ones you're killing.
So no, these are ones that I'm holding on to for a butterfly release within like the next couple of days. So like that way, their wings don't get damaged or anything. It's just they're just
Okay.
chilling there. And those cooler temperatures means that they don't have to feed multiple times a day. So it's just like a way to protect them, an easy way to chill them out. So I have another 50 or 60 in there. And then caterpillars, I would say like 700.
Do they ever get out? Do you ever find caterpillars roaming around your house randomly?
So they're in my rearing room now, but when I was raising them in my apartment when I worked at Botanica, some of the craziest spots I've just randomly found an escapee. Like one formed a chrysalis on the cord of my vacuum cleaner. I found one inside of my lid of my toolbox that I must have left open and didn't realize that a chrysalis had formed there until I opened it back up.
So
like, what?
Chrysalis is a cocoon.
It's a cocoon, yeah.
Do they have to have materials to build those, or can they just build them with stuff they produce?
So butterflies, they technically don't, most of them don't form a cocoon. They just have their chrysalis. So a chrysalis, how to explain this? A butterfly is its chrysalis. So it's okay. I have to get more detail with this.
Get nerdy with it.
So caterpillars, they have skin, right? And they molt. So they shed the skin 4 or 5 times as they're developing to make room
like
for their rapid growth. Yeah, exactly like a snake or like a crawfish or something. And then their final molt, where they shed their skin, is when they don't really form a chrysalis, because the chrysalis is inside the caterpillar and they shed the skin, and this chrysalis is really soft and then it hardens up. So the outside of it is technically
their skin,
the equivalent of their skin, but in this instance it's different. It's the pupal case. So moths, they also form a pupa, like a pupal case, but it's inside of their cocoon. So with cocoons, they spin silk around themselves, attaching themselves to leaves and things, and they use that to maintain humidity levels and things like that and camouflage themselves. And butterflies don't really do that so much. Yeah.
Huh. I always kind of wondered that.
Just a slight difference.
And when they're actually molding inside of there, are they just a blob of goo?
It's essentially. So they break down proteins within themselves, and they start rearranging them and using them to create different parts of themselves.
That's so insane to me.
It is wild. So it's interesting because it's not just like there's no structure in the chrysalis, because when the caterpillar molts its last skin showing the chrysalis, you can see where the wing pads are. Yeah. You can see where the antennae are going to be, the eyes and things like that. But it's just the proteins and everything haven't completely been rearranged, or the gut of the caterpillar compared to the gut of the butterfly is totally different. Going from something that's eating like physical plants and hoarding all these plant proteins into something that only drinks nectar and mainly
it's a different animal. It's completely different, right?
Yeah. So they have to completely transform their internal organs essentially. It's really crazy.
That's bizarre. It's wild how stuff like that works and how that evolved that way to.
And they had no idea how it worked for the longest time, because you can't really cut into a chrysalis, because then it'll seep
die
out. Yeah. It'll die, and it's just that liquid that just seeps out until they started doing these scans now with technology, and they can kind of see, this is day 2, this is day 5.
They can see it inside of their forming, sort of?
Yeah, these different pathways and gut cells and things like that.
Are they actually animals?
So butterflies are technically classified as animals, yes.
Really?
Insects are animals, yeah.
A butterfly is an insect.
Yes.
But it's not when it's a caterpillar, right?
A caterpillar is an insect, yeah.
Is it really?
Yep.
Yep. So that 6-leg thing is bullshit that we were taught in school?
Well, here's the crazy thing, is that they do have 6 legs. So the front legs of a caterpillar, there's 3 on each side, and all the other ones aren't real legs. They're just these kind of suction cup things that help them move along.
Every caterpillar?
Yeah. And then butterflies, like
even
monarchs,
those furry ones, like those fur balls that you see, they have 6 legs.
There's just these little tiny points. So a lot of times they don't really use that to hold onto the leaf. They kind of sometimes use that in later instars to hold the leaf while they're eating. But the rest of their legs that aren't really legs are what's holding themselves on.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. My life is a lie.
Yeah. And then monarch butterflies, a lot of people are like, oh, well, these butterflies only have 4 legs. But they're a classification of butterfly oh gosh, what is it called? I'm forgetting what it's called. Brushfoot butterflies.
Brushfoot.
So their front 2 feet are these little tiny things tucked away up here.
Like T-Rex?
Yeah, they're just like these little small things just tucked away, and they don't really ever use them, only for like, I don't know what.
It's like a T-Rex. What do they use those arms for?
They have bigger legs. They're just 4. So
a lot of chicken wings.
Yeah, a lot of kids try to get you being like, this isn't a bug, there's 4 legs. And I'm like, you are too smart for your own good.
Or are they? We were just taught bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's very true. A lot of people are like, oh, well, how do you touch the butterflies? I was told that if you touch them, they die.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, they probably told you that as a kid, so you wouldn't try to grab one and
eat
squish it or something.
You ever eat them?
No.
Have you ever eaten a butterfly?
I have not.
No?
Most butterflies are actually quite poisonous.
Are they?
Yeah.
If I ate a monarch butterfly right now, would it mess with me?
Maybe. Maybe it upset your stomach a little bit. But it's more so like predators like birds and things like that are smaller. So monarchs, they sequester this chemical that really kind of messes with their predators' hearts. So if a bird eats it, it could have heart palpitations, or if they eat too many caterpillars, it could.
Oh, it's like doing coke.
A heart attack.
Yeah. Caterpillars are coke to birds.
Apparently, yeah.
Have you ever eaten a caterpillar?
I have not.
There's a little hesitation on that.
There are some countries, like that, eat larvae of different things.
Yeah, so like grubs and stuff like that.
So technically, a caterpillar is a form of larva.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's some caterpillars that you can eat. But having handled caterpillars, and I just
no desire.
Can't see how that would be appetizing. So
okay. I had to ask, somebody that works with these things, you never know if you're just munching down on them every day.
No.
And keeping it a secret.
Now, that would be some psychopath.
That would be some crazy, yeah. Like, oh, that's our friendly butterfly neighbor over there. And then one day you're at his house and he's just in his garage mowing down. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. All right, well, we're coming up on an hour. So tell me about what your goals are with this. Like, do you have goals for the world, or do you have goals business-wise? Where do you see this going, and where would you like to see it going?
So, goals. I would like to see more people plant more milkweeds in their yards for monarchs. That's a goal just for people. And to be more pollinator friendly, try to use less pesticides if you can. Like, reconsider all those lawn treatments that you might be doing. Like, a lot of times, like, if you need to do it, sometimes it's necessary, but sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And just try to think before you use pesticides. Like Sevin, I hate Sevin. That, SEVIN. It's whenever you pour the powder on any sort of plant, it will kill anything that visits it, whether it's like good or bad, that might eat on it. So that was one of my main goals. Another one is to get people to reconnect with nature and look at the little things, because a lot of times when you are really overwhelmed by some of these big things and you just think, oh gosh, I can't do this, and sometimes it's just like you see this little thing, or you take a moment to look at something small, and it kind of breaks you out of that, and you think, oh, okay, I can do this. And then personal goals for the business, I would really, really like to see things just continue to expand. I've had so many opportunities present themselves that were weird to me already. It's like, I have no idea how this happened. But I don't have quite the means to supply everything yet. That's
just the universe throwing things at you, man.
Yeah, so I would love to see that continue to grow. Maybe I'd go back to like grad school if I wanted to study Lepidoptera, to learn even more about it. And those are my current.
You're just kind of rolling with it.
Yeah, I was telling my dad that I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
That's amazing.
There's a new opportunity that comes around, and I think, how can I make this work? And I go for it.
Dude, that's the way to do it, though. Cheers to that. I
Yeah.
gotta give you a cheers for that one, because too many people out there are afraid to do that and take those opportunities and those doors that open up for them. They're afraid to walk through.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to do that shit. That's the only way things will ever work out for you. You know.
And then that's really how networking, I think, really takes off. Is, you know, if you do this opportunity, then all these people that were involved in that opportunity are now going to talk your business.
Exactly.
Talk about it to everyone.
Yeah, and then they're going to promote you and they're going to recommend you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, those little steps that seem so mundane when you're doing them, they grow to be like the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
It's literally, that's what it is. For people out there that are thinking about doing something passionate like this, something that they're passionate about, like whether it be butterflies. I mean, how many people do you know that do this when you started doing this? Probably nobody, I'm assuming.
There are no butterflies in this butterfly farms in this region. So there's some in Texas, like Tennessee, Virginia, obviously Florida. There's a lot in Michigan. Oddly enough, Michigan is a major butterfly state.
Is it?
Yeah, they have a few different butterfly houses. They have 3 different butterfly farms. It's interesting. So for this region of like Colorado, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, maybe even Oklahoma, I'm not sure on that one, there's no butterfly farm.
Yeah, and so, if someone's listening right now that is trying to pursue something in their life that they're passionate about, they might be in your position where it's something that's unique, that's not out there. It might even be butterflies.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to those people? Like, what's your piece of advice for somebody that's like that, and they're maybe a young person that's like, there's no way I could ever make anything with butterflies, even though I love them so much,
So I would say, I guess, just test the waters. Because like maybe if it's like a hobby or a small thing that's unique, start small and get yourself at maybe like a farmer's market, an art market, because online sales is really hard to just start doing. You won't make any sales because no one will know about you.
No one will know where you're at or where to find you, right?
So if you start local and you start kind of small, just test the water, see what people are interested in. Because I'm sure this little niche thing with whatever they're interested in, there's so many different ways they could go with it. And you can kind of see where the demand is for different things. And it doesn't matter where the demand is, it's still the thing that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say.
Just kind of start small and local and get your name out there, and don't try to jump in all at once online or something like that.
Yeah, that, at least with my experience, that's not how to do it. I think the pandemic was a weird situation because that was the year when I really started.
That you say that though, and so I've had several people on here that have had, good and bad experiences with COVID, well, with their business during COVID, not with COVID, but some of them, obviously huge detriment to their business model, but some of them thrived during that time period, and a lot of them started like you during that time period. So it was a weird deal for everybody, but I'm glad for people like you it actually worked out and it gave you time to grow, you know?
Yeah, it gave me time to realize where the demand was. Like when you start out, you want to try to do everything, and then eventually you'll find where your niche is within your niche. Like, oh, I'm only going to do butterfly kits. That's what I'm passionate about and I'm good at. Or I'm going to do only butterfly releases. If you try to do everything, you'll get overwhelmed. It is good to maybe test it at first, but that's what I'm still learning, is that, I have big plans and I realize, oh, well, I can't do it all. And if you did do it all, you probably wouldn't succeed as much as you would be.
Yeah. I mean, nobody can go in all at once and have it, ready to go unless you're rich as hell and you can afford to do an operation like that.
Yeah.
That's
like a poor investment kind of concept of just like, I'm going to do everything and then hope it goes well. And that's not going to work for a niche.
No,
concept.
True, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any last advice? Any last words? Anything you want to say? Now's the time to say.
Gosh.
Not to put you on the spot.
Milkweed.
Plant milkweed.
So
quit smoking that weed and plant milkweed, or do both.
In Kansas?
Yeah, stay in drugs, don't do school. That's my motto. All right, Ryan, tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me on thehatcherybutterflyfarm.com or on Facebook at the Hatchery Butterflies. Instagram, also the Hatchery Butterfly Farm. And I think that's it.
All that's in my description, so go find it. Click on the YouTube description, find all that stuff. Go click on it. Go find him. Book him for events if you want butterflies released at some event that you want or whatever it might be. Thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
It's an interesting story, you know.
Yeah.
It's not every day you talk to somebody that's in this kind of business.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of really unique.
Yeah, I appreciate the story and I appreciate your time.
Yes.
And good luck with everything, bro.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.